Hello everyone, it's Old Guardian here. Blizzard can sometimes be relentless. And what they're relentless about this time is, unfortunately, Discard Warlock. Remember the time when they decided to print Silence Priest cards until someone is actually able to play Silence Priest? This time they are intent to push Discard Warlock until someone in the world is going to play it. There are 4 new cards that they're trying to accomplish that with, so let's take a look at what they have. First up, we have a Reckless Dire Troll, a 3-mana 2/6 taunt with a battle cry to discard your lowest cost card. And this is actually an interesting mechanic, because usually the problem with discard is that you end up discarding some really good stuff, like if you already have your Blood Reaver cooldown in hand, if you're running that in a deck, then okay, do you dare to play a card that discards something, or will you risk discarding your cooldown, which is such an important piece? But by discarding your lowest cost card, you're actually playing around that very well. And add to that, you could use Clutch-Mouthed Zavas, one of the previous wave of we have to make someone play this card. And Clutch-Mouthed Zavas only costs 2 mana, and when you discard it, it gains a buff and it returns back to your hand ready to be discarded again. So essentially, the 3-mana 2/6 doesn't necessarily have any other cost attached. That is, if you have managed to draw your Zavas, which in the early game you will have around half of the time. So when you compare this to Stegodon, which is a 4-mana taunt with similar stats that no one is ever going to play, and Tar Creeper, which is an equally powerful taunt minion for the same mana cost, you can see that actually Reckless Dire Troll is not a very good card. If you really need a lot of cards that discard stuff, and because the discard is controlled on this one, maybe you can play it, but this will be the first one out when you start to actually build a good deck. However, this one is actually a winner. Shriek. 1 mana, discard your lowest cost card, deal 2 damage to all minions. 1 mana, 2 damage AoE. We have had Demon Wrath before, deal 2 damage to all non-demon minions. We have had Volcanic Potion, deal 2 damage to all minions. They both cost 3 mana. Now we get the same effect for 1 mana and your lowest cost card, which could be the Clutch-Mouthed Zavas again. This is actually a seriously good card. Depending on where the meta stands, it might even be a go-to AoE effect for Warlock. Right now it has some stiff competition, because Defile is incredibly good, and the real power of Defile is that it's also very strong in the late game, and Shriek cannot really boast that. But still, a fairly potent card. If you want to play discards and you don't want to go all in right from the start, if you don't want to go all in aggro, then yeah, Shriek looks very promising card that could also see play outside of discard decks, especially after Defile rotates out. Another discard synergy card that we're getting is Soul Warden, a 6-mana 6/6 with a battle cry to add 3 random cards you discarded this game to your hand. So it's a 6-mana 6/6 draw 3. In that sense it compares to Countess Ashmore quite a lot. Countess Ashmore is a 7-mana 6/6 that draws up to 3 cards as well. What's a little bit of a weakness of both cards is that neither of them has taunt, neither of them is very defensive, but they can do some things. Note that we know from Cruel Dinomancer that if you manage to regain Clutch-Mouthed Zavas that you have discarded, all of the regained copies will be 2/2s. The buff does not carry over to Resurrection. Nonetheless, definitely an interesting card for Discard Warlock. And then the final piece of the puzzle. The legendary Warlock champion, High Priestess Yaklik. A 4-mana 3/4 with taunt and lifesteal, and when you discard this, add 2 copies of it to your hand. At 4 mana it might be a bit difficult to set it up so that this would be the cheapest card in your hand, so you might have trouble targeting this with your targeted discard effects. But if you manage to hit this with some discard effects, getting more copies, discarding those, getting more copies, means that you can have a lot of 3/4 taunts in the late game. Would you like to have a lot of 3/4 taunts, even with lifesteal in the late game, is a bit of another matter. Obviously, between High Priestess Yaklik and Clutch-Mouthed Zavas, there are actually cards now that nullify the discard as a cost, and that's potentially very powerful. But is it really powerful enough? If you look at what pieces we already have for Discard Warlock, well, we have the Solarium, draw 3 cards at the end of your turn, discard them. There's the Clutchmother Savas. Then we have some cards that we can use to discard cards, mainly Soulfire and Doomguard. Stuff like Succubus is just pretty weak overall. And we have some discard synergy cards. Blood Queen Lanatel, which has some potential to grow, and Blood Queen Lanatel could really grow with the targeted discard effects, because they're unlikely to discard a 5-mana minion, so Blood Queen Lanatel would actually be safe in your hand. And then we have the Warlock quest. Discard 6 cards, you get a Nether Portal, it's a 5-mana spell, you play it, and then you will get 2 3/2 imps every turn. But who really cares about 3/2 imps? And who has the time and patience to try to buff up the Blood Queen? And even if you can make a big Savas, is it ever going to be worth it? Overall, this card has been one of the most failed mechanics in Hearthstone. Doomguard and Soulfire see mainstream play because they are just so good that even though there is a huge downside, they're still playable. And there was a brief period of time when Malchezaar's Imp, which allowed you to draw more cards when you discarded cards, and Silverware Golem enabled very aggressive discard type of decks. But anything even slightly slower has never been able to work, because giving up all your resources is the very opposite of what decks that want to take things slow want to do. So now we get the Soul Warden, and it tries to make it so that okay, this discarding was like just a temporary cost and you actually get it all back and it's all going to be fine. But it's going to be really hard. Even if all of this stuff, Blizzard is pushing this really hard, but even if all of this stuff makes discard viable, discard is never going to be fun in Hearthstone. It's just one of the least fun mechanics available in this entire game. So this expansion looks a little bit sad for Warlock. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more.